Today we will discuss topics such as the mathematical secrets of the Antardasha sadhana of Chapter 51 of Parashar Horashastra. Now, what we're looking at here isn't just some collection of philosophical abstractions, right? It's a rigorous, step-by-step mathematical framework. In this deep dive, we're going to sequentially decode the exact calculations you need to literally pinpoint specific life events within these major astrological periods. All right, here is our mathematical progression for today. We'll be covering the secret of Shloka 1, Chaudaday, and Kentradi planetary Antardashas, the Antardashas of the Rasis, their specific order, Paka and Bhoga Rasis, and we'll wrap up with the calculations in Pinda Dashas. Section 1. The secret of Shloka 1. Let's set the foundation by looking directly at the opening of Chapter 51. This single fragment basically sets the agenda for everything that follows. If we deconstruct its literal meaning into plain English, the author is declaring that to truly understand a major planetary period, a dasa, you absolutely have to mathematically divide it into its constituent parts, which we call antardasas. I mean, it's just not enough to know the overarching cycle. You have to know the exact chronological order of the subperiods hidden inside it. And that brings us to the core term itself, Antardasha sadhana. Astrologically and philosophically, this is all about uncovering the chart's hidden timeline. Sure, a major dasha might span several years, but Antardasha sadhana? It's the exact mathematical derivation of the subperiods. This has immense practical significance when you're actually doing predictive work. It empowers you to take this broad, multi-year cycle and narrow it down into a highly specific, actionable time frame for a real-life event. It's like finding a needle in a chronological haystack. Moving on to Section 2, Chaudaday Kentradi planetary Antardashas. Now, as we advance to verses 3 and 4, we uncover some absolutely crucial mathematical constants for specific planetary dasha systems. What's really fascinating here is the original Sanskrit phrasing. These verses prescribe a remarkably strict calculation method for working out the antardasas of the Chardi and Kentradi dasas of the planets. They lay down a universal mathematical constant that you absolutely must apply to these periods. The text gives us this incredibly precise, almost geometric set of steps. First up, you determine the total dasha years. Second, and honestly this is the vital mathematical key here, you divide those total years strictly by 9. Finally, the very first antardasa is invariably assigned to the lord of the dasha itself. But, the sequence doesn't just stop there. The scripture dictates that the subsequent periods belong to the planets sitting in the Kendras, then the Panaferas, and finally the Apoklimas, all ordered according to their respective strength. It's just a brilliantly logical unfolding of time. Which brings us to Section 3, Antardashas of the Rashis. Jumping right into verse 5, the mathematical focus dramatically shifts away from the planets and directly onto the signs themselves. And the absolute critical point here is the number 12. Verse 5 states that the antardashas of Rashis are worked out by dividing the total dashiya years by 12. So basically exactly 1/12 of the dashiya years of a Rashi becomes the period of its antardasha. The text even emphasizes that the even smaller subperiods, the pratyantardashas, are calculated using this exact same fractional math. So to put it simply, while planets require a divisor of 9, the signs demand a divisor of 12. Next up, Section 4, Order of Rasi Antardashadas. Okay, so once we have the mathematical duration sorted, we need to figure out the chronological sequencing. Verse 6 establishes two contrasting rules, and they are based entirely on the nature of the sign. First, you start the sequence from the Dasa Rasi itself or from the 9th Rasi from it. You pick whichever of those two is stronger. Then, you've got to look at whether that starting Dasa Rasi is odd or even. If it's an odd sign, the antardasas progress in a direct onwards order. But if that Dasa Rasi happens to be an even sign, well, the subperiods have to progress in reverse. Pretty straightforward, right? All right, Section 5, Paka and Bhoga Rasis. Diving into the dense mechanics of verses 7 through 12, the original scriptural layout really addresses the researcher directly here. It points out the special characteristics of the order of Rashi's antardasas. We start seeing some highly complex structural differences in the mathematical progression, and it's all based entirely on whether a sign is movable, fixed, or dual. Let's carefully unpack these mathematical progressions because the specific nature of the Dasa Asarya Rasi completely alters your chronological calculation. So if the Dasa Rasi is movable, the Antardasas just cycle through all 12 Rasis in either an onwards or reverse order, depending on that odd or even roll we just talked about. But if it's a fixed Rasi, the sequence starts with itself and then it literally jumps to the Antardasa of every sixth Rasi in sequence. And finally, if the Rasi is dual, it starts with itself, then moves to the Rasis in Kendra to it, then the Rasis in Kendra to the fifth from it, and finally the Rasis in Kendra to the ninth from it. It's this highly sophisticated, almost architectural, geometrical progression. Tucked right inside these verses, the text clearly defines two absolutely critical terms. The Dasa Ashraya Rashi is known as the Paka Rashi. Meanwhile, the Rashi which dictates your actual lived experience of that order is called the Bhoga Rashi, or the experiencing sign. The verses give us a strict, incredibly powerful interpretive rule right here, connecting the raw math directly to human experience. It says if the Paka and Bhoga Rashis are associated with malefic planets, the native is going to experience bodily pain and mental agony. Conversely, if they're associated with benefic planets, you'll see enjoyment and happiness. Our final section today, Section 6, Calculations in Pindadasas. Advancing to verses 13 through 16, we uncover some really unique fractional mathematics. The Sanskrit instructions explicitly detail the Dashapachaka rules. What this section reveals is how dasha periods aren't just handed over to a single planet. Instead, they are meticulously divided among interacting planets based entirely on their precise spatial relationship to the lord of the dasha. To make sure we completely grasp this proportional allocation, we have to look at the specific spatial rules. The lord of the dasha is the primary Dashapachaka, so naturally, he receives one full part of the calculation. A planet posited in a trikona from him acts as a pachaka for exactly 1/2 part. A planet sitting in the 4th or 8th from him, that takes 1/3 part. And finally, a planet sitting in the 7th from him receives exactly 1/4 part. The mathematics absolutely demand that the time is proportionally shared based on these specific angular distances. It's a beautifully balanced system. When we take a step back and look at Chapter 51 in its entirety, we are looking at a flawlessly structured mathematical framework. You've got the total duration constants, you have those specific divisors, 9 for planets and 12 for signs, you have the chronological sequencing dictated by odd, even, movable, fixed, and dual modalities, and finally the precise fractional allocations of the Dasha Panchaka. All of these elements interact perfectly. This chapter completely removes the guesswork, replacing it with an absolute mathematically calculable timeline. So, here is my final thought and question for you today. Now that you have the literal formulas and the structural keys from Chapter 51, how are you going to apply these rigorous mathematical secrets to unlock the exact timeline of a chart in your own research? The formulas are right there just waiting to be utilized. Take these sequences, test them out, and watch the chronological architecture of the chart completely reveal itself.